Imagine walking into a home where almost everything works differently from what you're used to today. The air feels cooler in strange ways, light comes from unexpected places, and simple daily tasks take more effort than you might think. Many of the features that once defined everyday life inside a house didn't disappear overnight. They quietly faded away, replaced by things we now take completely for granted. And yet, if you look closely, these forgotten details tell a story about how people really lived, what they valued, how they adapted, and how much effort went into what we now consider simple comfort. One of the most surprising things people had in their homes was something that replaced the modern refrigerator. Before electricity became standard, families relied on what was known as an icebox. It looked like a cabinet, often made of wood, sometimes beautifully crafted, but inside it held a very different system. Instead of cooling itself, it depended on a large block of ice placed in a compartment. That ice had to be delivered regularly, often by an iceman who would come through neighborhoods carrying heavy blocks and tools to cut and fit them into each household's box. The cold air would naturally circulate downward, keeping food from spoiling. But it wasn't perfect. Water would drip, ice would melt quickly in warmer months, and families had to constantly manage it. It wasn't just an appliance, it was part of a routine. People had to plan their meals around it, check it daily, and adapt when the ice ran out. Over time, as electric refrigerators became more reliable and widely available, the icebox slowly disappeared. Today, most people never think twice about opening a fridge, but back then, keeping food cold required effort, timing, and a bit of luck. Another feature that quietly vanished from homes is something you might not even notice at first glance. Small windows placed above doors, known as transom windows. These weren't decorative accidents, they served a very specific purpose. Before air conditioning and central heating, controlling airflow was essential. These windows could be opened to allow fresh air to move between rooms, helping cool down a house naturally. They were positioned high enough to maintain privacy, yet effective enough to improve ventilation and bring in extra light. Many homes even had special rods or tools just to open and close them. It was a clever solution for a world without modern climate control. But as technology advanced and sealed environments became the norm, these windows were no longer necessary. Homes became more insulated, more controlled, and in a way, more closed off. What was once a simple and smart feature faded into architectural history. Inside many homes, there was also a room that served a very different social purpose than anything we see today. It was called the parlor. This wasn't just another living space, it was often the most important room in the house. Families used it to receive guests, hold important conversations, and display their best furniture and decorations. In many cases, it was kept closed most of the time, only opened when visitors arrived. It represented status, pride, and presentation. Life inside that room followed certain expectations. People dressed differently, behaved more formally, and used the space with intention. Over time, as homes became more casual and lifestyles changed, the parlor lost its role. It gradually transformed into what we now call the living room, a place for relaxation rather than presentation. But something about that formal, intentional space was left behind. In larger homes, especially those built during earlier centuries, there were entire sections designed for people who weren't part of the family. Servant quarters were common in houses where staff were needed to maintain daily operations. These areas were often hidden away, in basements, attics, or separate wings, close enough for work, but distant enough to remain out of sight. These spaces reveal a lot about how society was structured at the time. Daily life inside these homes depended on a system of roles and responsibilities that no longer exist in the same way. As lifestyles changed and household labor shifted, these quarters became unnecessary. Today, they might be repurposed or removed entirely, but they remain as quiet reminders of a different kind of daily life. Something as basic as washing your face or hands also looked very different in the past. Before indoor plumbing became standard, homes relied on washstands. These were small pieces of furniture designed to hold a basin and a pitcher of water. Every morning and evening, people would pour water manually, use it for washing, and then empty it afterward. It was a simple process, but one that required preparation and consistency. There were no faucets, no instant access to running water. Everything had to be carried, filled, and maintained. Over time, as plumbing systems developed and became more accessible, washstands disappeared. What once required effort became effortless, and something that was once central to daily routines became obsolete. Heating a home also required systems that feel almost unimaginable today. Coal chutes were a key feature in many houses, especially during colder seasons. These were small openings built into the foundation, allowing coal to be delivered directly into a storage area, usually in the basement. From there, it would be used to fuel furnaces that heated the home. The process wasn't clean or easy. Coal had to be handled manually, carried and burned regularly. Dust and residue were part of everyday life. In some homes, workers were responsible for managing this process, while in others, families handled it themselves. As cleaner and more efficient heating systems were introduced, coal chutes became unnecessary. Today, many people don't even know they exist, even if their home still has one hidden somewhere. Electricity, too, looked very different in its early days. One method, known as knob and tube wiring, was widely used before modern electrical systems were developed. Wires ran through walls using ceramic knobs and tubes to keep them in place and insulated. It was considered effective at the time, but it lacked many of the safety features we rely on today. As electrical demands increased and safety standards improved, this system was phased out. It remains in some older buildings, but mostly as a relic of early innovation, rather than a practical solution. There was also a time when something as simple as milk required a special feature built into the house. Milk doors were small compartments installed in exterior walls, allowing deliveries to be made without anyone needing to answer the door. The milkman would place bottles inside from the outside, and residents would retrieve them from inside. It was efficient, convenient, and surprisingly secure. This daily ritual connected neighborhoods in ways that modern systems no longer do. As refrigeration improved and grocery stores became more common, milk delivery declined, and these doors became unnecessary. Today, many have been sealed or removed, leaving behind only subtle traces of their existence. Between kitchens and dining rooms, another unique space could often be found: the butler's pantry. This wasn't just storage, it was a working area used to prepare meals, organize dishes, and manage serving logistics. It was especially common in homes where formal dining was part of daily life. The presence of this space reflected a level of structure and routine that has largely disappeared. As homes became more open and informal, the need for a separate transitional space faded. Some modern homes still include similar features, but often for convenience rather than necessity. In multi-story homes, moving items between floors required creative solutions. Dumbwaiters were small elevator-like systems used to transport food, laundry, and other items. They operated using ropes and pulleys, and later with simple motors. They saved time and effort, especially in larger houses. While they still exist in some places today, they are no longer common in residential homes. Their disappearance reflects a shift towards simpler layouts and different living habits. Even something as decorative as hanging pictures had its own system. Picture rails were installed near ceilings, allowing artwork to be hung using hooks and wires instead of nails. This prevented damage to walls and made rearranging easy. It was both practical and elegant. Over time, as construction materials and preferences changed, this feature became less common. Today, most people simply use nails or adhesives without thinking about alternatives that once defined interior design. All of these features have one thing in common. They weren't just objects or design choices. They were part of a way of living. Each one required attention, effort, and intention. Life inside a home wasn't as effortless as it feels now. Every convenience we have today replaced something that once demanded time and energy. And maybe that's what makes these forgotten features so fascinating. Not just that they existed, but that people relied on them every single day. Now imagine going back and living in a house like that. No instant cooling, no automatic heating, no running water at the turn of a handle. Everything would feel slower, more manual, maybe even more connected in some ways, and more difficult in others. Which of these do you think would be the hardest to live with today? And which one do you think we might have lost that actually made life better in some way? If you found this interesting, Go ahead and leave your answer in the comments. I'd love to see what you think. And if you enjoy discovering how everyday life used to be, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. There's a lot more hidden history inside the things we stopped noticing.